I can, of course. Welcome everyone to this evening's LGFA Coach Education webinar. It is now 7:30. We will be no longer than 70 minutes. It will be no more than that. So looking forward to this evening's topic. And also just that you know, guys, if you have any questions or queries throughout the webinar, please just use the Q&A function or the chat function. Now the chat function, if it doesn't, if it's not enabled, you can use the Q&A, and I'll monitor that throughout and be happy to answer any queries as we go on. So want to move on there, Glenn?
Yep. There we are.
So this is just one webinar of a series of webinars in the coach education sphere in ladies football. We've just conducted one recently looking at the lessons learned from coach education analysis and how it affects our coaching practice. And we have other webinars coming up, cultivating a coaching community practice in a voluntary sports setting, Gaelic Games Player Pathway, injuries, what, where, and when. So there's a lot of webinars coming up that you just log on to our LGFA, ladiesgaelic.ie, and all the webinars are listed there, and you can just sign up the same. But all of them are recorded, and they're all available to view on our LGFA YouTube channel on the coach education playlist.
Super.
So tonight we're joined by our guest, Glen Kelly. I'll let Glen introduce himself in a few minutes. Tonight's topic is the demands of our game. What does the research say? So I'd ask everyone to listen to the webinar, to think about what's being presented, to reflect on it over the coming days, and think about how can it assist you in your coaching practice. So I'm going to cross you over to Glen. Glen, I'm really looking forward to this evening's topic. I think it's one a lot of coaches will get a lot out of.
Yes, most certainly. So guys, just a quick kind of overview of myself. So my name is Glen Kelly. Down the bottom there now, you can see my Twitter handle and you can see my email address. Okay, so any questions, any queries, I'm more than happy to have the conversations. Okay, so I'm working myself as a coach, working myself as a performance analyst in ladies Gaelic football. So kind of, it's great to have the conversations of what does the research say, but also how can I take this out onto the field? Why does this matter? And kind of, if you have a KPI, what does this actually mean? And it's just having the conversations. We have a community here, so let's really use that community. Okay, so a little bit about myself. So I completed a postgraduate research student from the Technological University of Dublin. And I've been conducting ladies Gaelic football research now for 2 years. It's briefly just coming to an end there now recently. And yes, so now we're kind of starting to disseminate the results. There's a lot of results that we want to get out. The most important thing that we had in mind when conducting this research is how do we get it to the people on the field? How do we get it to the people out there with the whistle, with the balls, making a difference? Because it has to stem up from the grassroots, okay? So as we said, tonight's webinar is going to be demands of our game. What does the research say? Okay? So the outcome. So always looking at the bigger picture, okay? So by the end of this webinar, we hope that coaches and players that are attending here tonight and those who will be watching back will be able to understand what performance indicators in ladies Gaelic football discriminate a winning and losing performance. So in layman's terms, what does a winning team do? And what differentiates winning performances to losing performances? And how can we use this information to inform and support our team getting better and our players getting better? Okay, so it's understanding the nature of the ladies Gaelic football performance grounded in scientific research. Okay, so what we're going to do in here is kind of, let's just describe our game. Let's kind of give some information. Let's tie some numbers in. Let's tie our research into what is ladies football and what is the bigger holistic picture here. Understanding the match play activity cycles of ladies Gaelic football. Okay, so a simple question is, how long is the ladies Gaelic football match? How long is the ball in play? How long is the ball out of play? And things like so. And finally, it's always bringing it back down to setting goals and targets for your performance. Okay, so before we go any further, guys, the previous coach education webinars. Okay, so there may be some terminology, there may be some aspects that I'll refer to in this webinar. And you'd be delighted to hear that all of this information is available on previous, basically on the YouTube channel. One is how to conduct analysis of games, and the other one is an LGFA research pod. Okay, so as we said, there's a massive legacy value there on the YouTube channel. It's all there, all the information is there to be kind of grasped up and in your free time, listen on the way to work, maybe. Okay, so without further ado, we'll just get to work. Okay, so firstly, guys, what was my research, and can you tell me your research in a nutshell? Okay, so the overall objective, what we wanted to achieve here with the research was to define the technical and tactical demands of elite ladies Gaelic football, to benchmark a successful performance, and to investigate the determinants of successful possession and to uncover the key points of differences between a male and female Gaelic football coach. What we're going to be focused on here now tonight is the benchmark successful performance in ladies Gaelic football, the match play activity cycles in ladies Gaelic football, and we're going to briefly touch off the determinants of successful possessions in ladies Gaelic football. Okay, so as we see, guys, it's quite a mouthful. Okay, there's a lot of moving parts to play. There's a lot of aspects to the research. And the main thing that we want to do is to kind of disseminate the research at the right time. We want to make sure that we're not giving too much information at once, that we can build up a bursary of our understandings, okay? And where is this information coming from? In other words, is what was our metas, what was our sample size, okay? So in regards to the benchmark performance data, okay, so I'll refer to the benchmark data and the KPIs. Where this information is coming from is over 3 years of ladies Gaelic football performances. Over the 3 years, we had 92 performances, and that was 46 games. So we had 46 winning teams, 46 losing teams over a 3-year cycle. And we've sought to understand what does a winning team do that differentiates to a losing team. We're going to obviously share some results here now this evening. In regards to the determinants of successful possessions, we analysed over 4,000 possessions. Okay, so there's 92 performances over 2 years. Okay, so 4,000 possessions, okay? And the match play activity cycles, we've analysed over 1,000 ball and play cycles, 1,000 ball out of play cycles over 1 year to kind of give a bit of more understanding of the nature of the ladies Gaelic football performance. Okay, so without further ado, we'll proceed on here. With the main question, guys, I always keep this in, how productive are teams with possessions? Okay, so as we know, ladies Gaelic football, it's an invasion sport. The objective of our game is to score points, is to score goals, is to put scores up on the scoreboard to win the match. Okay, so when we have a possession, how productive are we with those possessions? Okay, so as we see here in the green up on the top line and down below in the red line, it's basically some key performance indicators, okay, in regards to possessions, attacks, shots, scores, goals and points, and then we have our productivity. Okay, so firstly, as we can see here, a winning team will have 47 possessions a game, whereas a losing team will have 43 possessions. What we know here, pretty bog standard, is that winning teams will have more possessions than losing teams. You may ask yourself the question, how are they gaining these possessions? Okay, we'll touch this later on, but you can gain possession through kickouts. You can gain possession through your own or your opposition kickout. You can gain it through a throw-in. You can gain it through turnover and play. So there's multiple different ways. So as you say, a winning team will have more ball because they're able to gain possession easier. Okay, in regards to attacks, okay, attacks was retaining the ball over the 45-meter line. Okay, so as we see here again, a winning team will create more attacks when compared to losing teams. Furthermore, they will create more shots compared to losing teams, and obviously they will create more scores. Okay, so as we see here with the balls in regards to the goals and the points, what we found is that an average performance in ladies Gaelic football, the team will score 3 goals and 14 points for a winning performance, and a losing performance will score 1 goal and 10 points. Okay, so before we touch off productivity, guys, I'd like to just bring your attention to something that I found very interesting, which is here. So the massive thing that I found in a subjective point of view is that winning teams are able to cultivate attacks superiorly than losing teams. But we also have to remember, how can we create these attacks? We can create attack by turning the team over high up the field. We can create an attack by winning an opposition kick out. And the possession. So in regards to possessions, so a winning team will convert 76% of those possessions into attacks, whereas losing teams are basically converting 67% of their possessions into attacks. Okay, so winning teams are demonstrating superiority in their ability to create those attacks. Okay, and just over here on the right hand side in regards to productivity. So productivity is a metric that's been used for many years now in Gaelic football, which is the number of scores per 10 possessions. So what we found is that in 10 possessions in a winning performance, they will score 3.55 scores, whereas a losing team will score 2.62 scores. Okay, so before we go any further, I'd just like to address Will here and see if Will has any questions for us, or if there's anything coming in at the chat box before we proceed any further. I think he's on mute there. Here he comes.
Yeah, it's interesting, I suppose, that productivity. And I suppose from a coach who's probably coaching in their sessions, and I suppose it's a nice kind of parameter to say, okay, how many attacks do we have, or how many shots at goal did we have, you know, in a game that we're having. And I suppose it's just a nice metric for every 10 attacks or 10 attempts at it. You should be hitting at least 3, getting at 3 scores, whether it be a goal and 2 points, whether it be 3 points, whether it be 3 goals. that's what you're really kind of highlighting really into, Glenn, is that's what it's something you could utilize, shall I say, in a training session to kind of get a kind of metric of, okay, if we're getting 10 shots on target, we should be getting at least 3 scores out of it. That's basically what this is saying here, Glenn. Would I be right in picking that up?
Yes, exactly. Well, that's exactly it. So as we remember, the conversation we had the other day was of how can we use this information on productivity? To me, it just looks like a big word with a number underneath it.
Yeah.
Okay, but how do we use this information to bring it to the training pitch? How do we use this information to inform and support our decision making, but also our training and practice?
Yes.
Okay, so me and Will were having the conversation in regards to if we have a training drill. Okay, so we split the team. We have 50% of our team here. We have 50% of our team here. Okay, each team has 10 attacks, let's say, as opposed to 10 possessions, we'll have 10 attacks. What can we convert from them 10 attacks? And what was our productivity from them 10 attacks? All it takes is a simple bit of paper, writing it down, and then we have a competition. You know yourself, guys, as soon as you insert a bit of competition into a team environment, yeah, you're going to get results. So, and then how do we use this information to kind of allow our players to get better? Okay.
It's just a nice metric. It's just something for us as coaches that if we throw the ball in 10 times, okay, you're going to attack 10 times here, okay, it's just something you can make. Well, listen, on average, we should be hitting at least 3 scores. I think it's just something nice for coaches just to have that knowledge and inform their coaching practice.
Fantastic. Okay. So we're progressing. As we're touching off productivity here, guys, it's a great time to bring in some what we discovered in regards to productivity. Okay, so as we said, the winning team productivity is 3.55, which is the number of scores per 10 possessions. Whereas the losing team are scoring 2.62 scores per 10 possessions. So what we found, okay, so out of our sample size, we found out that 87% of games where winning teams had a greater productivity. So not all of the time did the winning team were more productive with their productivity. So what we kind of established was a goal productivity. So this was the cumulative score. And what we established that when we applied goal productivity, 100% of the games, winning teams had a greater goal productivity. So cumulative score basically just means, guys, if we scored 210, we multiply our 2 by our 3, which gives us our total cumulative score. Okay, so what we found is that this is a more valid metric because 100% of the games, winning teams had a greater goal productivity. But again, what this is telling us is the prevalence of goals in ladies Gaelic football. Goals can win or lose a match in ladies Gaelic football. Okay, Will, have you got anything to touch off that now before we go any further? Because
no, I think that's probably, I think a lot of coaches probably listening in going, yeah, in ladies football, there's a lot more goals scored in ladies football than our counterparts in our male side. So I think that's something just to be aware of, that goals are a very important factor in ladies football. You know, you could score 15 points, but the opposition could score 4-4, you know, so it's just something, or whatever it may be, you know. So I think goals, I think from this, what's telling me is that goals are important in ladies football.
Most certainly, most certainly. And now, as Will said, is that people talk about the prevalence of goals in ladies Gaelic football, but why is there a prevalence of goals in ladies Gaelic football? That's a question that that was always sitting there on my shelf. It was sitting on my wall there for years. It's kind of, why is there more goals? Why is this happening? Okay, so hopefully we can kind of initiate a conversation here on why this is actually happening. Okay, so straight away, it's where teams are shooting from. Okay, so what we have here is basically a shot map of winning teams on your left-hand side, losing teams on your right-hand side, shooting from play. Okay, so what I've always been told in college and through academia for years is that a picture will paint 1,000 words. Okay, so as you can see here, it paints 1,000 words. Okay, so as we can see, there's a distinct shooting range for both winning and losing teams in ladies Gaelic football. Okay, if anyone's familiar with men's Gaelic football, we can see the shooting range is much further out in men's Gaelic football when compared to ladies Gaelic football. So if we're asking the question, why is there a prevalence of more goals in ladies Gaelic football? In my opinion, it's because there's maybe some physiological differences amongst the genders. Therefore, ladies Gaelic football need to get closer to the goal to shoot. If we're getting closer, the goal's in sight, then you're left with that risk reward. Do I take my point or do I take my goal? Again, what's the answer to that? It comes down to your coaching philosophy. It comes down to, you need a goal or do you need a point? It comes down to what's the situation of the game. It comes down to a multifaceted kind of, there's loads of factors that play whether we go for a goal or a point. But again, it's that risk reward. Okay, so identified in blue is where the goals are scored from. Green is where the points came from. And red is where the misses came from. Okay, So as we say, guys, you can watch this back to kind of take this out. I'm sure a lot of people will be screenshotting this and kind of taking it away and see
Yeah,
where
I
teams
suppose
are
it's
shooting
just,
from.
yeah, but again, though, I'm looking and I'm watching this tonight and going, okay, well, if I'm coaching, you know, my team tomorrow night, then obviously I'm just aware that, you know what, a team that can shoot around the D area for long distance scores is important too, like, you know, in terms of, you know, getting our teams used to shooting. The shooting area, really, it seems in ladies football, it's around the D area and just slightly outside. But you see there, not many scores come from further out those ranges, really. So it's working the ball into those scoring zones. So now we probably have a visual of what the scoring zone looks like. And you can probably show your players that as well, Glenn. Would that be something coaches should be probably observing and understanding in terms of when they're setting up their activities? Okay, well, if they're doing shooting drills, have an idea of where to place the cones to get their players used to shooting from these distances.
Exactly, Will, exactly. And as we said, as we alluded to in previous webinars, it's kind of, what is the context? Are we playing, we here with an under 11 side? We kind of ask our 11 sides to shoot from 30 meters out? Probably not. Okay, however, we always have to, this is our benchmark. This is the elite level of senior ladies Gaelic football. This is the benchmark that they are setting. This is, if we want to aspire, this is what we want to aspire to. This is the elite of our sport. And this is what they're telling us. So it's again, what can we take away from what we're learning from their performances to inform and support our practice, taking into consideration the larger context? Have we got this thing? I'm sure everyone listening that here this coach ladies Gaelic football is going to say, well, I know Mary can kick a 45. Well, I know a Sinead in our club who can kick a 45 also. But again, taken into the larger context, then you have a unique player on your team who can score from them areas. So how do we utilize her strengths? It's just providing information to support and inform our decision making. So just before we proceed any further, guys, what we found is that an average performance, as we said, would be 24 shots per match. From those 24 shots per match, we find out that the winning teams have a shooting efficiency of 54% from play, whereas losing performances would have 17 shots per match with a shooting efficiency of 44% from play. Okay, so what this is basically telling us, so it's,
I like that, Glenn, because I know I'm a coach going, you know, you have a kind of a target that we should be, you know, aiming to get 20, 22, 23 shots, at least 23 shots on target, shouldn't we? That's really what it's saying here. And if we can get the higher percentage, then we could do well, you know. So it's a nice target to have, whereby
it's setting a target. It's what I always refer to.
Don't get bogged down it either, shall I say?
Yeah, it's just giving people a little bit of it. Like some people are target driven, some people are goal driven. It depends on what gets your players going. Some people want a little number so they can analytically work it out in their head. Some people don't want to know that stuff. But again, it comes down to the coach. It comes down to what can we do to assist your coaching practice? And again, that's the whole purpose of the coach webinar series, I believe. So we'll proceed on, guys. We've addressed shooting from play, and then we'll just briefly touch off shooting from placed ball. But before we go any further, a placed ball is a shot from a free, 45, or a penalty. And again, nothing really changed from the last slide. On the left side, you have the winning performance shooting from placed ball. On the right side, you have the losing performances shooting from placed ball. Okay, so I'll just give you a couple of moments just to have a little look over where are teams shooting from play, where are teams shooting from placed ball, and where are they missing from? And is there a trend? Are we seeing a trend here where the green is, or are we seeing a trend where the red is coming from? Okay, so as you're watching over that, guys, just so an average ladies Gaelic football match will see 5 shots from placed ball with a 75% conversion rate, whereas a losing performance will see 6 shots from placed ball with a 70% conversion rate. Okay, so what we're kind of seeing here, there's not a massive difference between winning and losing teams' conversions from placed ball. Okay, and you may ask the question, why is this? Because the constraints are limited on a placed ball. There's not a lot of variables at play. And you have a player, you have a placed ball, you have a lot, no one kind of running in front of them. It's kind of set. Okay, so it's just something to think about. Okay, Will, is there anything here?
Guys, yeah, anybody, if you have any questions, please put in the Q&A and I'll observe that and I'll put it to Glenn. So if you have any observations so far, please just put in the Q&A and I'd be happy to put it to Glenn. But I suppose from a coaching perspective, it's interesting. Now, many people score from 45s. Now, I'm sure a lot of coaches would have their 45 strategies, you know, to maybe to go short to do a 1-2. But also if I'm a coach and, you know, I have my free takers, it's nice to know that when I'm getting them to practice their frees, you know, when I play a game, if a ball goes over the bar, then I give an extra point to a free taker they can score from a certain distance. So I'd mark out various cones, you know, for my free taker to practice freeze under pressure. But it'll help me with obviously where I put those cones and those distance out from the goals. Just getting bear in mind of where are the scoring zones. When it comes to place balls, really, again, isn't it?
Massively. Again, guys, it always comes down to it, just providing the coaches with the information. It's just giving food for thought. Okay, it's just trying to give information to allow us to get better, really. Okay, so I think we'll leave the shooting there, guys, and we'll progress on to another massive aspect of ladies Gaelic football, which is kickouts. Okay, so as you see here, guys, we have a little table here on the left-hand side. We have a little bit of information here on the right-hand side. Okay, so I'm going to start here on the right. I'm going to move through. We're going to have a little conversation. We're going to share something that we found. Okay, so firstly, what is the demands of kickouts in ladies Gaelic football? So what we found is that losing teams are required to take an average of 6 more kickouts per game. Okay, so the losing team will take 6 more kickouts a game. Okay, so when we look at these retention rates in regards to kickouts, so we see a winning team retain 79% of their kickouts. And so pretty much if you have 10 kickouts, they will lose 2 and they'll retain 8. Okay, and a losing performance would retain 72%, which would be closer to retaining 7 and losing 3. Okay, but we have to remember a losing team retains 72%. So they're having more kickouts and they're losing more of those kickouts. So when we stem back to how do teams create attacks, if we're winning a kickout inside the opposition 45, we create attacks. So there's a larger, like, no variable in ladies Gaelic football kind of occurs in isolation. It's not a game of kickouts. It's not a game of attacks. It's a game of ladies Gaelic football. And that's why we all love our game so much, is because it's so exciting. There's so many variables in our performance that amount to a successful performance. Okay, and another massive statistic that we found is that the majority of kickouts in ladies Gaelic football will go short. Okay. Will, have you got any thoughts or any before we proceed here onto our table? Is there anything that jumps off the page there from you?
Kickouts being very important in ladies football is one, Glen. I think everybody would agree that's listening in here this evening, probably listening back to this webinar. Kickouts are important. I suppose having an idea of what you're doing in your kickouts is very important, because the team that can retain their own kickout will set up an attack, as you said. So it's a form of attack, really, and the team that has a strategy against the opposition kickout is very. But it's very interesting, though. You know, short versus long. I'm interested to hear about that. You know, in terms of you're saying that teams prefer to go short and long, and that's interesting, really, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it comes down to your coaching philosophy. It could come down, like I've seen a lot of teams. Sometimes we could play a team and all their kickouts go long. But again, it comes down to coaching philosophy. Why are they going long? I'm sure they have a tactical approach to go long. So as we see here, but should we be going long or should we be going short? Is there an answer to that? I wouldn't say so. It comes down to there's a lot of factors at play. But from the senior ladies Gaelic football performances and our research, what we found is that, as we said, a winning performance will retain 79% of their kickouts. When they go short, the retention rate spikes up to 86%. So when they go short, 86% of the time they will retain the kickout. When they go long, they will retain the kickout 64%. Whereas losing teams, as we said, when they go short, they will retain 81%. And when they go long, they will retain 54%. So a massive thing to kind of, yeah,
it's interesting. But I'd love to ask the question, you're probably going to answer it, is that which is more productive? So
that's the thing, is as we said at the start, guys, it's not a game of kickouts.
You might say to me, well, we win 8 out of 10 of our short kickouts. We only win, say, 5 or 6 of our long kickouts. But from a productivity point of view, we're actually getting more shots off on the long kickout. Can you answer that for me, Glen? So the point I'm questioning is, okay, while I understand a lot of teams go short, the question I'm asking is, what will get me more attacks in terms of getting a shot on goal? So Glen, can you answer that for us?
Yes, so in the next couple of slides, we're definitely going to touch on this in a little bit more detail. And we can nearly have a full webinar on basic productivity at kickouts. But the main thing to kind of keep in mind, I'll always go back to risk reward and kind of breaking down what's actually happening. Okay, so I have a kickout. If I go short, I have let's say an 86% probability of retaining that kickout. But where am I in the pitch? Does winning my kickout win the game? No. If I have 100% kick out retention, does that mean I win the game? No. If I have more scores than the opposition, more cumulative scores, or whatever we want to call it, will we win? Yes, we will. Okay, so what we always have to think in mind, if I go short, I'm really far back. I'm inside my own 45 here. I need to get up inside the opposition's 45 to score. And then if I go long, we could gain the ball, let's say, just before the 65. I have less distance to travel to get to where my end goal is. So what my proposal here as a coach and as a team, it's a risk reward. Am I willing to risk a 60-40% going long with a higher probability of getting a shot and a score than going short with a lower probability? So it just gives us information, guys, and it's food for thought for coaches and players. And it comes down, you could have some teams who are far more productive off a short kick out than they are with a long kick out. But again, it comes down to the context of your team and your players.
And it's also how you measure that. Like, you might win. Oh, you won 100% shot. Fair play to you. And the next play, you gave away the ball. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it's really looking like if you're coaching, for me as a coach, I'm going, right, okay, it's one phase is win the possession of the shot kick out of one. Phase 2 is what do we do with it in terms of transition the ball. And phase 3 is then an attacking play. So from a coaching perspective, there's more to just winning a kick out. There's phase 2, phase 3 that you also have to coach. So because you can win 100% of your shot kick outs, but sure, they could turn you over in the next phase and you could, give away scores. So there's a lot more to kick outs than just the phase 1, if that makes sense.
Exactly. As William just alluded to there, if you win your kick out, it's only getting started now. The play button has only started. So now it's it's okay. But again, it's having the conversation with our goalkeepers. It's okay to go long sometimes and lose the ball. It's not all about a massive KPI of 100%. It's kind of having them conversations that our players understand the risk reward of going long and short, and when there's a time to go long and short. And it's initiating those conversations to facilitate people learning and getting better within ladies Gaelic football.
And Joe Watkin, from tonight, I'm actually going to propose that probably what we will do is, I think I'll do a webinar maybe on patterns of play from kickouts only, and just show how that's working in the coaching. So you've put a little idea into my head, Glenn, that we'll do in the future.
Fantastic. I'd be delighted to share some clips as well, because even having the conversation with different counties have different playing styles.
Yeah. Like
if I was to say Meath to you, everyone's going to have an understanding of how Meath play. If I say Galway, if I say Dublin, but again, it's what different, what's their patterns of play? How do they differentiate? So for example, when Galway win a kick out, what do they want to do? Are they kind of a possession based game, or do they run at you like a steam engine? I'll leave you to answer that question yourself. Okay, so we'll progress on here, guys. Head on to our next slide. Okay, so what we have here is a kick out analysis of ladies Gaelic football. Okay, so again, it's as we're moving away now from some retention rates in long and short into where the kickouts actually going. Again, as identified in green is the ones that were won, yellow were the ones that were fouls or out of play, and red were the ones that were lost. So the main thing that kind of jumps off the page to me, and me and William were having this conversation today, is that the kick out maths for winning and losing teams are pretty similar, but you demonstrate that not a lot of kickouts go further than 60 meters. Okay, so just to touch off once more, when we say a short kick out, it's inside the 45, which would be this line here. And then a long kick out will be anything past the 45, which would be obviously this line here and forward. Okay, so yeah, so what I obviously we have some numbers on this, guys, and we're going to disseminate them kind of over the next couple of webinars. But what we're finding is that the kickouts, there's nearly 3 distinct areas. Well, you can nearly say 6 distinct areas. It's left and short, center and short, right and short. And as you can see here, left and short, center and short, right and short. You have very few in these little channels. So it's kind of, again, when we talk about patterns of play and kind of what are the habits and what's the larger scheme of things, this is kind of where the kickouts are going, ladies Gaelic football. Is it, of course, no one's telling that you have to go to this area. It's just a style that's adopted. So William, do you have anything in regards to what the map is telling you there? Is there anything that jumps off the page that you didn't think was happening? Or
yeah, no, it's probably interesting, like, in terms of, you can see those 6 key areas, can't you? And I suppose from a coaching practice perspective, I was going out to practice coaching, or if I was setting up a game, I'd probably mark out those 6 boxes. Do you know what I mean? Like, and probably have an idea of where that ball is going and the range of my goalkeeper in terms of that. So that would help me for my coaching practice, understanding the distances that are required and marking out those areas when I'm practicing that in my coaching practice, Glenn, you know. But it's interesting to see though, you know, when teams go long, I suppose there's a lot more red there really in there. And it kind of goes back to your point that a lot of teams like to go short in their kickouts, you know.
And it's, again, as you said, it's the density areas. Like you can see, the areas that are a lot darker is because a lot more of the kickouts are going there. Yes. But as I always alluded to, the guys, you didn't need that shot map to tell you where the kickouts are going. Everybody has their idea where you're going, but again, it's putting a picture now. It's to reinforce our biases. It's to really reinforce, because what I was picking up on watching the matches is actually a trend, which we can say now it is or it isn't. Okay.
Yeah, and also, like I was saying to people listening in, is that if you're going long, you need to have a phase 2. So phase 1 is primary possession, winning primary possessions, winning the ball clean, or maybe, you know, from a bounce into the chest or whatever it may be. But what's phase 2? So if there's a break, what's phase 2? And I suppose for the long kickouts, you need to be thinking about your phase 2 from your kickouts, in particular in this, because, you know, if we go long, the risk reward is greater. But if you do lose the ball, obviously it's an attack for the opposition. So it's phase 2 of a kickout going long is very important. I'd be thinking, Glenn.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, kind of in a nutshell. So, is there any questions before we progress on? Because we're kind of moving away.
No, people are quiet enough. So please, guys, you know, use Q&A. Use the Q&A, everyone. Please, if any questions or observations, even if you feel we're talking good stuff, or you know, if there's stuff that you maybe want to question or maybe have a thoughts on, good or whatever it may be, please use the Q&A, and I'd be happy to relay that to Glenn. So Glenn, you can move on.
Super, brilliant. Okay, guys, so what we're going to be progressing on to now is the characteristics of successful possessions. Okay, so before we go any further, guys, we could have turned this into nearly a 3-hour conversation or a 3-hour webinar in regards to determinants of successful possessions, because there's so much at play. Okay, so in a future webinar, we're going to be focusing a little more specifically on the intricate details of this and what exactly it means. But for the forthcoming slides, we're going to kind of give a brief overview. We're not going to kind of go paralysis by analysis. We're just going to give enough to kind of inform and support our decision making. Okay. So firstly, the characteristic of possession. The first characteristic we can address here is how are teams actually gaining possession. Okay, so we broke it down in here into percentages, guys, because it just makes it a little bit easier for going forward. And obviously, in the future webinars, we're going to add a little more numbers and more metrics to this. Okay. But as we see here, winning possessions, we analysed 2,146 possessions. Losing possession, we analysed just short of 2,000. Okay, so what we found is that 2% possessions are gained through a throw-in. 28% of winning possessions are gained through their own kick-out. 15% through opposition kick-out. And the most frequent way of gaining a possession in ladies Gaelic football is through a turnover in play, okay, or a turnover from just any sort of turnover, okay.
But on that throw-in, that's throw-in in terms of commencement of play. So
yes, correct.
Just for people, just be aware, what is a throw-in? In our rule book, it's called commencement of play, and a throw-in is whereby when you win the ball, when the referee blows the whistle, the start of the first half and the start of the second half, and possibly, Glenn, I know you're just probably going off a bit off tangent, is that probably we as coaches don't think enough about, you know, the importance of winning prime possession, because there's probably 2 points there to be secured, or a goal maybe to be secured. I know we did a pattern of play there recently in a webinar, but a lot of teams are really focusing on that, you know, winning primary possession from the throw-in now, because it could be a direct score.
Well, yeah. So as you said there, as we're looking at here, how we gaining possession, what we're going to be looking at now in a moment is where the shot's coming from. What is the origin of shooting possessions? What is the origin of scoring possessions? And as we see here, that 2% of total possessions were coming from throw-in, but are teams actually scoring from their throw-ins? Are teams scoring from them possessions? And should we be really putting emphasis on let's win that ball because there's an X percentage that we can score here? Okay, so we'll touch on that now in a moment. But the main thing that kind of jumps off the page here for me is the 55% of possessions being gained through turnover. Okay, I know me and William were having a conversation the other day in advance of this webinar. That's kind of, for myself, when we're kind of setting up training drills, when the drill starts, we'd always start shoulder to shoulder with the player and everybody's in their set formation. However, we refer to the name of the webinar, it's the game demands of ladies Gaelic football. What does the game demand of us? So as we can see here, 55% of the time, the game will demand of us for our possession to start in play from a turnover. And as we know, as a turnover can happen on the break, and everyone's bouncing forward, we have a fumbled ball, and then a turnover, we gain possession. So now we have, how do we transition and how do we use this information to inform and support our practice and our training? Are we starting our possessions from very rigid and formal structure? Or is it kind of dyadic? Is a lot of teams moving when the possession starts, which more simulates an actual game scenario? Okay, do you have anything to kind of think about there, Will?
And I'm thinking, as a coach, I'm thinking, well, what does that look like for me? So, for example, instead of starting a game where I throw the ball up in the middle, I might say, right, Joe, for the next 5 possessions, I'm going to kick the ball into the half back line. You fumble it and you win it, and then the half hour comes in and wins it. And let's start to play from there. So you're kind of setting up scenarios that are, I suppose, very applicable to what the research is showing. Okay, well, what do we do when we turn over the ball? So I give the ball to the wing back. Okay, you're going to fumble it. Well, what do we do when we turn it over, and what do we do with that? So getting used to the mindset. Okay, when we win the ball, well, what do we do positive with it? Because, as you say, it's a lot of turnovers. So a lot of teams are winning the ball back. They're probably giving the ball back as quick as regaining possession. Glen, I know you noticed that in a recent under-17 study we did. A lot of teams go away the ball more, just after winning a ball.
And to be honest, as you alluded to that there now, I can't wait to have another webinar in regards to the PDP program, because again, the findings that are coming out of that, guys, it's really interesting stuff. And it's kind of, again, it just allows us to understand what's actually happening in our game and how we can use this information to just half of the stuff, like 99.7% of the stuff that William came to me with, what he was seeing in the performances, it just allowed me to support and inform his biases, allowed me to kind of to reinforce what you're seeing is actually happening. Now we can actually, as opposed to going down a tangent, we find out this isn't actually happening. Okay, so it's just something that we're going to be touching on in the next couple of weeks. So we touched off how teams are gaining possession. What we're going to touch off here now, guys, is does how you gain possession affect the probability of you creating a shot? So we always kind of stem this back down to what is the bigger picture? It's not a game of kick out, it's not a game of shots, it's a game of can we create the scoring opportunities and things like so. Okay, so again, on the green tab, we have the winning performances, and on the orange tab, we have the losing performances. So what we found is that 62% of the time when a team gains a ball through a throw-in, they will convert that possession to a shot. Okay, so if they have 10 throw-ins, they will get a shot off 6. Whereas the losing teams, it's nearly a 50-50. So if they win 2 throw-ins a game, they'll get a shot off 1, they won't get a shot off another. Again, guys, people are saying, is that a fact? Well, it's not exactly a fact, but it's benchmarking. It's taking into consideration the whole population over 3 years and kind of what's actually happening. What is the past experiences? Can we learn from our past experiences? Can we use that information to inform it? Okay. So in regards to the kickout, so when a winning team wins their own kickout, 62% of the time they will convert that into a shot, whereas losing teams will convert it 50% of the time. As you can see here, guys, there seems to be a trend on the conversions from how teams are getting balls. So the winning teams are always converting. Okay. An opposition kickout was found to be the highest conversion possession method into a shot, with winning teams converting almost 80%. So if they win 10 opposition kickouts, they're getting shots off 8. Okay, so don't lose your kickouts short. You could have that conversation with the importance of nearly that, because we don't know, but 80% of the time the research is telling us that if you lose your short kickout, you're going to concede a shot. And if we look at the shot conversion rates, what's the chances that we're going to basically concede a score? And from a turnover in play, it's pretty around the 50s. Okay, 57% conversion to a shot and 50% for a losing performance. Okay.
Well, I suppose then looking at that, people are going, geez, Glen, but that's not major. 79%, 72%. Really, there's not much of a difference, really. But in the context of things, it is actually, when you break it down, in particular with close games and stuff, there is a big difference there, Glen. I can sometimes people kind of go, geez, that's only 7% of a difference, really. But it is a big difference. Going back to the point of only 6 more kickouts. It sounds like it's only 6 more kickouts, but when you add all that up, it does make a difference, doesn't it? In terms of
like if we take into consideration how many, like if people think back from their own performance, how many times are you winning the opposition kickout? Let's say maybe 6 times.
Yeah.
Maybe 8 times. Okay, if I can tell you 79% of the times you're going to convert to a shot, it really just reinforces, because we don't win a lot of opposition kickouts, but it shows the power of, if you can, it has a very strong probability of you scoring or creating a shot from it.
So therefore, I would say in my own coaching practices, have a real observation what the opposition are doing their own kickouts and go after it and be aggressive in that. Because from what the research is showing, you turn over the opposition kickout, you have a high probability of getting a shot up and score. So that to me is important, in terms of how we set up in terms of attacking the opposition kickout, because it could lead to an attack.
Exactly. So as we said, we talked about attacks, we talked about shots. Bring it all back down to the main thing of ladies Gaelic football, guys. It's scores. Are we getting scores from these kickouts? Are we getting these scores from these throw-ins? Okay, so does the possession gain method affect the probability of creating a score? Again, guys, we broke this down to percentages here. Okay, so winning team, again, and the losing team and the gain method. Okay, so from a throw-in. So 40% of the time, a winning team wins a throw-in, they will score from it. Okay, 35% of the time when they win their kick-out, they will score from it. 50% of the time when they win an opposition kick-out, they will score from it. So let's just break this down. If you've had 20 kickouts, you've won 10, you've lost 10. From them 10 you've lost, we could nearly say there was 5 scores conceded. Okay, it reinforces the risk reward. And then we kind of come down to the turnovers. 31% of the time when you gain the ball through a turnover, you will create a score. And again, as you can see here, winning teams are demonstrating superiority in their ability to create scores from all different possession game methods, as you can see there. And as you can see from the shots, and as you can see from winning teams are just gaining more possession through all different ways. They're creating shots through different ways and they're creating scores through different ways. Okay, so but that's kind of a given, because that's kind of the integral part of ladies Gaelic football, is gaining the possession and creating that into scores. But yeah, so that's kind of in regards to the characteristics of possession. Is there anything there for you, Will?
Yeah, and like guys, we've 1 or 2 slides left, so please, if any questions or answers or questions, please put them into the Q&A, and I'd be happy to pose them to Glen in a few minutes. But I suppose, Glen, is that the risk reward. Do we practice long kickouts enough? And do we practice those phases? I don't, Glen. I suppose it's something we should. The risk reward is to it, but practicing long kickouts is something that we probably should focus on as well, not just short kickout strategies in those 6 zones.
It's having them conversations, isn't it, Will? It's kind of like we have
who's your goalkeeper as well, and who's your outfield players, and what dynamics. So there's a lot of variables that come into it, really, doesn't there?
And we'd be delighted, as you said, all these variables. So as you can see, the only variable that you can see in regards to game method, we have throw-in, own kick-out, opposition kick-out, and turnover. Throw-in is the only game method that has no variables. If you gain possession through a throw-in, there's only one area of the pitch that throw-in occurred, from a start commencing a play, which is in the center of the pitch. Opposition kick-out, was it long, was it short? Own kick-out, was it long, was it short? So right away we have more variables. We have numbers here. We've collected the data now to tell you what is the probability of creating a score if you win an own kick-out long, own kick-out short. If you win an opposition kick-out long, if you win an opposition kick-out short. Okay, so, but again, we don't want to have a paralysis by analysis here, putting loads and loads of numbers out when there's so much information you can't take anything in. Okay, so as you can see here, we have our 4 here. We could even break these down again. And we can have own kick-out short with a percentage, own kick-out long with a percentage, and likewise, even with turnovers. What's the probability of creating a score when you turn the opposition over inside their own 45? What is the probability of creating a score if you turn them over in the middle of the field? What's the probability of turning them over if you turn them over in defense? So again, the area of the pitch which you turn them over has a massive impact on your probability of creating a score. And then it comes down, there's some fantastic findings there. I don't want to kind of let all the cat out of the bag at once, but it's very, very interesting. And things in regards to opposition kick-out. If you win an opposition kick-out, like a long one, it nearly has a higher probability than it for a short one. It's quite similar. But you'd think that if you win a short opposition kick-out, you're higher up the pitch, you can create a score quicker, or you have a higher probability of creating a score. What we found is, and what I found from my own coaching experience, when we win an opposition kick-out short, it's like, quick, go, just get the score. We have to kind of take a step back for a moment. We've already done the hard work. We're already in possession of the ball higher up the pitch. And I'm sure somebody's sitting there thinking, oh yeah, well, let's catch him on the break before he's set. But that's again, that comes down to your coaching philosophy. That's what you think about when I say them, that basically when I say that. But again, should we be more composed because we've already gained possession higher up the field? We've already done the hard work. We don't have to formulate an attack here. We've already created, and we can be patient. Or should we just like, we've gained the ball, let's get it over the bar, let's get it going again, let's break them down, we win in their opposition kick out. So it's a multifaceted, there's a lot of things at play, guys, isn't there? Yeah, so we will. Is that in there before we move on?
No, we'll move on. Yeah, move on.
Happy days. We're coming up. We have 15 minutes. We should have enough time to get through everything here, guys. Okay, so as we said, we've touched off the possession determinants. We've touched off some KPI benchmark data. And then we're going to briefly share some of our findings in regards to the match play activity cycles in ladies Gaelic football. So let's paint the picture first, guys. Okay, so what we found is that a ladies Gaelic football, as we're all aware, ladies Gaelic football has a countdown timer from 60 minutes. What we found is the game actually runs for 66 minutes and 17 seconds. Okay, so what does this matter in regards to your coaching? Probably not. But again, it just gives us a little bit more information on the nature of our game. This is due to stoppages, due to things like so. Okay, so for those 66 minutes and 17 seconds, we found that the ball is in play for 37 minutes and 51 seconds. So BIP is an acronym for ball in play. And that is 57%, but we'll touch on that there now in a moment. And the ball will be out of play for 28% and 26 seconds, which is 43% ball out of play time. Okay, so I'm just going to move down on the bottom side of the screen here, guys. Okay, so what we found is that 57% of a ladies Gaelic football match, the ball will be in play, and 43% of a ladies Gaelic football match, the ball will be out of play. Okay, so what does this actually mean? Okay, so there'll be 81 cycles of play. Okay, so there's a difference. I have to kind of signpost this here now, guys. It's all going to be coming out in the research, but a ball and play cycle is not a possession. A possession can have multiple cycles of play. A cycle of play is a continuous cycle of play from gaining possession, and then if, for example, if there's a foul and the ball goes out of play, then when it comes back in, that's a new cycle. So we had a ball in play cycle, a ball out of play cycle, a ball in play cycle. Okay, so it's kind of what is the continuous cycle? When the ball is in play, how long do they last and how often do they occur? Okay, so we found that the average ball in play cycle will last for 28 seconds in ladies Gaelic football. Massive thing to signpost here, guys. That is the average. Okay, so the average, people can have a conversation with the average is if I have a foot in the fire and a foot in the freezer, I'm an average, I'm okay, but I'm also very sore. Okay, so it's kind of, so what we kind of see here is, guys, there has been some possessions that are much, much longer. There was some possession that were much, much shorter. But again, the average, where it's kind of averaging out, and the most frequent, kind of the medium, is around 28 seconds. Okay, and then when the ball goes out of play, again, the average is coming in at 21 seconds. Okay, so before we progress on and kind of the breakdown in difference to halves, is there anything here, Will, that kind of that jumps off the page here? Did you think that 57% of ladies Gaelic football performance was in play? Or do you think it'd be more or less? Or
thought it'd be actually less, to be honest with you. I think this just shows you ladies football is an exciting game. There is the ball and play a lot more. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, but yeah, I would probably expect it probably less, because you always think that it would be. But I actually think it's not too bad. But what's really kidding me is the 28 seconds and 21 seconds. So, Glenn, from a coaching practice point of view, so there's no point in me doing drills and stuff for 4 or 5 minutes if the ball is only in play for 28 seconds. So it's probably, I should probably reduce my time in terms of my coaching games, say my small sided games and stuff like that, that maybe they should be 90 seconds long, maybe 40 seconds, 90 seconds long, and have a high intensity short burst rather than, you know, let them go for 4 or 5 minutes, because realistically the ball will only in play average 28 seconds. Does that make sense to you, Glenn?
Yeah, it's again, and it's, geez, if you
I understand that sometimes the ball can be in play for a minute or two. You have to mind the ball for 2 minutes if you want to run down the clock. But in terms of, I suppose, in general, in terms of our should I say, timing of our small sided games, 90 seconds to 3 minutes would be what you're kind of looking at, really, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. So again, it coming down to, you could nearly open up a can of worms there in regards to, are we working in a strength condition and physiological realm? Are we working in a skill acquisition realm? Are we working in a small side? There's so many things at play here. But as William said, it's, should we be doing possession drills for 4 minutes? Does the game demand that for us? Maybe not. However, is the coach's philosophy that when we go 3 points up, we kill the game? Will long possessions warrant a performance gain then? Yeah, probably will. Okay, but another massive thing here that I kind of jumps off the page here. So there's 71 ball out of play cycle. Okay, so the ball will go to play 70 times a game, let's say. But the game has to restart from a dead ball scenario 80 times a game. When we're coaching, are we thinking about those scenarios? Are we thinking about how we restart play? if we have a free in the middle of the park, are we always going forward? Or can we go laterally? Can we go back? Do we, like, it's having the conversation that there's going to be a lot of instances in the 66 minutes where we have to start the ball from fresh, from kind of a dead ball scenario, whether that's from a kick out, whether it's from a free, from a sideline ball. There's loads of different ways that the ball will have to start again. It's comes down to, are we aware of the frequency that we have to start from dead balls? Or like, and it's again, can we tailor our training sessions for these situations that when we're starting a training drill, that it's not that we're just disregarding, just let the ball get into play. Let's get the ball moving. But when we go out on the weekend, we have to get the ball moving a hell of a lot of times. So how do we inform and support our training sessions that kind of reiterate the importance of when we have a sideline ball? We have possession of the ball here. Let's keep possession of the ball. Okay, and sometimes it's going back and let's build up a bit of play here and then moving forward, as opposed to kicking a ball down the line that we won't retain, because of a 50-50 ball or a 60-40 ball, and it hinders basically the chances of keeping that ball.
Yeah, I never thought of that, Glenn, really. That's interesting. 79 times we could have possession of the ball, whether it be given to us or we have it back.
So that's obviously it's split.
I know
it's
a
winning and
half,
losing team. Yeah.
So, I know. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of times in the game where you will have the ball, the ball be given back to you, whether it go over the sideline, whether it go wide, whether it goes a foul, you're going to have the ball in your possession. So we actually probably don't think about that enough. Do you know what I mean? Like,
massively, yeah. Like it's even
in training,
collect fouls, another massive thing. Like a team could collect how many fouls did the opposition commit against us today? But you have to. Why would the coach be asking that question? Is it kind of the question they're free? What is it? But for me, when I say we had 70, the opposition failed us 17 times today. What's jumping off the page to me as performance analyst is how many times from those 17 frees did we retain the ball after 3 phases of the play? That's the question, and that's the information that we can use to get better. When we have a free in not a shootable range, do we force going forward, or do we cycle the play back out and retain possession and try to cultivate an attack? But again, it guides, it's information to kind of get you thinking, and hopefully there's a couple of statements that we said there to kind of get you thinking. And oh yeah, this is something you may know, something you might not know, something that you can use, something that you can disregard. But again, it's adding to that coaching toolbox.
Yeah, I just think it's something for coach to practice. Right, we make a decision. Everyone, is it within scoring range? That's number one. Number two, if it's not within scoring range, well, we mind that we retain our possession in the next one. And I think even that simplistic, even in players' minds, that will really settle the mind in terms of, it's not all rush, go. We have to make a decision here. Is it range? No. Okay, we're going to mind the ball. So let's get a scenario whereby we retain that ball. Yeah, I think that's exactly. I don't think we think about that enough. Yeah, well done.
And we'll progress on here, guys. Just one more in regards to, there's actually another one to come after this. Okay, so the match play activity cycles again. So we have our average time and we have to break down our halves. Okay, so what this slide is basically telling us is that there is more ball and play time in the first half when compared to the second half. Okay, so 61% in the first half, the ball is in play, whereas the second half, the ball is in play for 53%. So what we found is that in the second half will be longer on average than the first half, because the second half is coming in at 34 minutes, 27 seconds, whereas the first half is coming in at 31 minutes. Anyone could say you don't need to be a brainiac to realize that in the first half there's a lot more vigor in the game. As the game kind of stabilizes out, it nearly becomes more of a tactical warfare as opposed to a physiological warfare. Okay, it kind of comes down to things like so. And yeah, so pretty much, guys, there's more ball and play time in the first half when compared to the second half. Okay.
I think that makes sense. Doesn't really, because I suppose the game gets, you could be up a few points, you could be down a few points, it could be players getting tired. So yeah, it's just something to be. You just have to be a lot more efficient with your possessions in the second half and what you do with it.
Brilliant. And we'll progress on here to again. So there's 2 numbers here, guys, on the thing that we found very, very interesting. Okay, guys, and now, again, this is averages. There's going to be a lot more information coming out here in the publication and things like so. Kind of answer the more intricate details of the question that you may have. But 74% of the time when the ball leaves play, it will return to play within 30 seconds. Okay, so I'll reiterate that. 74% of the time, so 7 out of 10, you could say, the ball leaves play, it will come back in within 30 seconds. And 66% of the time when the ball is in play, so when we have a ball and play cycle, 66% of the time, it will last less than 30 seconds. Okay. obviously the variables that kind of come into this is massive. So when the ball leaves play from, let's say, a shot at goal, from a free in play, from a sideline ball, all of those variables have different times to take for the ball to return into play. Okay, so that's obviously, we're going to be touching off that. But again, guys, it's just something to kind of give you a little bit of information into kind of what is the nature of our game at the moment, and we'll get into more intricate details as we progress. Will, is there anything that jumps off there from you?
No, it's just interesting to know that, you know what I mean? Like, you know, when the ball is played, it's within 30 seconds coming back. So you've got time to reset as well. Do you know what I mean? So to reset and be ready for when the ball, from an opposition point of view. But I think that idea of the ball in play is less than 30 seconds. I think it's important from a coaching practice point of view in terms of how long our games are, small sided games are, and just something to probably just think about that in our sessions.
Yeah. Super. Okay, guys. So we're just coming up now to, that was 57. We have 3 minutes now to do a nice little key takeaway and open the board for questions. Okay, so the key takeaways that we're going to present here tonight, obviously, guys, I like to signpost that there's a lot more information coming here. Okay, so what we kind of done here is we opened up the lid, and it's probably going to be give you a little bit of information, but there's a lot more coming, trust me. Okay, so successful senior ladies Gaelic football teams will score an average of 17 times per game. As a coach, as a player, asking yourself, what's your target? When you go out training, when you go out to play your matches, have you got a target on how many times we should score a game? Is there a target after 15 minutes? How many scores should be on the clock? On the scoreboard at half time, have we got a target? If we have a target of, let's say, 7 at half time or 9 at half time, it's information to relay to the players. Where are we along that target? It's to start the conversation. Okay, girls, we met our target. Why did we meet our target? Okay, girls, we didn't meet our target of 9 scores at half time. Why didn't we? It's opening them from a coaching perspective. It's opening the questions, because they always have to remember the girls out playing the match are driving the plane. They're driving the team. Although we're looking at it from an external point of view, they have the knowledge. They have the information. It's a matter of a coach's, what questions can we ask to get that information out? Okay. Successful senior ladies Gaelic football teams will score 4.72 cumulative scores per 10 possessions. Again, we bring this back down to a coaching scenario. How many, if we have 10 possessions in a training drill, how many scores are we scoring from it? Are we scoring 8 scores? But then 8 scores could nearly be, we scored eight times, but then 8 times could nearly be 20 scores if we break it up, okay? So again, it's taken into consideration. It's the risk reward between goal and points. Another thing that we found, obviously, is that there's a distinct shooting range in ladies Gaelic football. And the big question is, how does this inform your coaching strategies? I'm sure everybody here now this evening kind of already knew that ladies Gaelic football had a distinct shooting range, but now it kind of puts a picture into your mind where it is. And we have to, again, take it into the context. This is senior ladies Gaelic football. Is this going to differentiate intermediate and junior? Most likely. Is it going to differentiate between the PDB teams? Yes, most likely. Is it going to differentiate down all the way down to under 14 and 15s? Yes, it is. Again, it's just information that we can use to support and inform our decision making. Okay, successful senior ladies Gaelic football teams will retain 79% of your kickouts. Ask yourself the question, what's your target with kickouts? But most importantly, what we kind of touched off tonight is there a bigger schematic thing at play when we talk about kickouts? Is it just a game of retaining kickouts, or is it a game of, can we get out from these kickouts? Can we create shots from these kickouts? And most importantly, can we create scores? Another massive finding was that 55% of possessions are gained through a turnover. Again, how are you going to use this information to support and inform your training sessions? And last but not least, cycle of continuous play without a stoppage in senior ladies Gaelic football lasts on average of 28 seconds. Okay, so that pretty much brings us up to an exact 60 minutes. We bang on time, I believe.
Great stuff, Glenn. That's really, really exciting stuff. And just let people know that Glenn mentioned there a few times that there'll be more webinars coming up, because Glenn has done some great research in this area, and also it's probably looking, did a bit of work in our under 17 player development program as well. So we're going to have a few more webinars coming up in the new year that will probably just go a small bit more into detail in other areas regarding the demands of our game, and also down into the skill acquisition of our game as well. So really looking forward to those webinars and those research and those results. But if there's anybody any questions, guys, before we leave, please just put in the Q&A and I'll put them together. If not, we can move it on. But then I suppose really, you know, all this research and data it's for people not to get bogged down in it, but probably just be aware of it, that it's there. And if it can help you in any way, if it's only one small bit of nugget information that can help you maybe get a point across to your team, maybe inform your own coaching practice, I think that's really helpful. And it's good that it's probably specific, that it's ladies football research too, Glenn. You know, that's the children stuff that we didn't have probably a few years ago. But now to have ladies football specific research is huge, really, isn't it?
Massively, yeah. And guys, as you can obviously, our sample, we're compiling every different county from, or nearly every different county. Obviously, different counties have different playing styles. It's just furnishing us with a bit of information. If we were to go and analyze, let's say, just Wicklow for 3 years, we'd probably get completely different numbers, because Wicklow have probably a distinct style of play. Yeah. But again, it just gives us some benchmarks, something to work off, something to kind of inform. Well, where am I looking? Where is my team's performance based upon senior ladies Gaelic football? Are we performing better in regards to shooting? Are we performing below par in regards to kickouts? And what aspects of our performance should we be turning our attention to improve? Obviously, we're sitting there and we're going to be doing our session planners for the year coming up. We're going to be doing the long-term plan of what are we working on in January, February, March, April, May. Are we taking into consideration the different aspects of this performance? And again, it's just hopefully these webinars are providing you with the information to inform and support your training and your practice, and hopefully giving you targets that when you are out there performing, it just gives us them a little bit of numbers to tie behind the performance indicators.
Excellent, Glenn. Thank you very much. Look, I think people, one or two comments come in and say thank you very much for your feedback and your research, and it's really good stuff. So everyone, this is going to be recorded, as I said, and it's going to be available on our LGFA YouTube channel for over the coming weeks and months. So if you get time again and you want to come back to it, this will always be there. If you want to inform your friends, your fellow coaches and clubs, please guys, let them know that the information in all the webinars that we've done are now available on our LGFA YouTube channel. So on that note, I was going to say thank you very much to you, Glenn. That was really, really exciting. We're back again in the new year. I think our next one is club coaching, community and practice in a volunteer sport. And actually I did my own research in that area. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you early in the new year. But on that, I wish everyone a very happy Christmas and a happy new year to everyone. And Glenn, thank you very much. We look forward to probably seeing you in the new year as well.
I'm sure you will. Fantastic. Okay. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for your attention. Okay, thank you.